Our next keynote speaker, spotlight speaker in fact, it's like a mini keynote really, but she should be a keynote, is Helen Keegan. Now I first met Helen, I'm sure she'll remember this, we were standing next to each other on a bus in Naples, of all places. Yeah. And it was amazing because we didn't know who each other was, and then we got off the bus and realized we were going to the same place, and then somebody introduced us who knew us both, and then we've been working together ever since, on and off. I think we've written papers together and presented together, haven't we, in various parts of the world. And it's my real pleasure to introduce Helen to you. She's a senior lecturer now in Salford University, and she's done some amazing stuff, amazing work, amazing research in augmented reality games. And that's one of the reasons why I just had to get her to this event this year to speak. So it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Helen Keegan. Thank you.
Hi everybody, thanks very much Steve for inviting me along today. I'm really excited actually to be able to share this with you. I'm going to talk to you about a module that I ran as an alternate reality game last semester. It was completely crazy, scary, and it looks as though we might have achieved some fantastic learnings. So basically, I just want to tell you the story of this alternate reality game. So, for those of you that don't know, alternate reality games have been around in some kind of manifestation probably since the late 90s, but the first kind of recognised large-scale ARG was an ARG called The Beast, which went along with Steven Spielberg's AI film. ARGs have been around, yeah, probably for about 10 years, usually used to kind of market things to people. They're a way to engage people with a story, a product, a journey. But they are also used in education as well. Now, an alternate reality game basically uses the real world as a platform to tell a story, and it's an interactive story that players engage with. And the people that control an ARG are called the puppet masters, but the ARG itself becomes driven by the community that play it. It's quite a kind of complicated idea in a sense, but essentially it's about using transmedia to tell a story that players interact with using real-world objects, generally the internet. So one of the most well-known ARGs was an ARG called I Love Bees, which was launched in 2004, and that was something that was developed for the release of Halo 2. And it involved millions of players. It went over about 3 months. It became a very, very well-known ARG. And there's another graphic there you can see, book cover, this is not a game. Now that is the mantra of an ARG. The whole point of an alternate reality game is you aren't meant to know that you're actually playing a game. Okay, so it's about making a really deep story and something so immersive that people don't realise they're actually gaming. Now, in terms of the affordances of ARGs, ARGs require communities of individuals to come together to solve problems, to find answers. And that's why they kind of have the potential to translate very, very well into an educational setting. It's about collaboration, communication, problem solving, and really importantly, it's about asking questions and asking the right questions. So it's about intense player involvement with a story that takes place in real time. ARGs cannot be replayed. Because they're a real game that is going on in real time, you have to play them as they happen. You can't go back into an ARG. It's an incredibly immersive experience, I think, that, or at least they are when done well. But you do find that there are kind of subtle meta-communicative clues around an ARG that will give players an indication that they're actually playing a game. But fundamentally, it's about immersion in a story and bringing communities of people together to collaborate. And one of the great things about ARGs is that they do have this slightly sinister undertone. They involve deception for a start. And that's one of the things that really interests me because of the ethical issues around deceiving students. So I'll show you some evidence of that shortly. The thing that actually got me into alternate reality gaming on a personal level, probably going back to 2005, was Lost, the TV show Lost. Season 1, there was this amazing ARG based around the season, which nobody obviously knew. They were playing a game. All we knew was we started watching Lost, and at the end of the closing credits, there was a web link to a website for Oceanic Airlines. And the story was so confusing and so engaging that immediately you're like, okay, internet, Oceanic Airlines. And when you got to this site, you found all these links to strange places, and before I knew it, I'd probably spent about 3 hours on the internet trying to work out what the hell was going on in this TV show, what was real and what wasn't real, more importantly, because you were being told this story, and yet the kind of web presence that was there behind the story indicated something very, very real, that the airline that actually, the flight that crashed in Lost, actually belongs to a real airline. And it was this kind of idea about not knowing what's real and not knowing what's not real, and being in this very kind of uncanny, strange place that really drives the players into the game. And it's such a kind of powerful mechanism. So I think from then, I'd always been interested in the potential, the educational potential of ARGs, because when I thought about the forums that I engaged with, the communities I engaged with through the Lost experience over about 3 months, trying to crack codes, solve puzzles, I really wanted to bring that into the classroom. Now, another reason for wanting to harness the affordances of alternate reality gaming in education is because over the last few years, I've been getting increasingly frustrated, as I'm sure many people have, with the kind of consumer culture in a mass HE system. And the consequences of that being that students are more than ever increasingly assessment driven. They're more bothered often about what they need to do to pass, more, and even more importantly, to get a first. They don't really often care about the learning. Often the first question we'll get in the first session of a module is, so what do I need to do to pass? How do I get a first? That's kind of it, really. And then obviously the other one is, I'm paying X amount a year. So, we're in this consumer culture, and the thing that really annoys me out of it is, I think it really threatens the love of learning. And that's something that's quite scary. And the other thing that I'm really conscious of is that beautiful childlike curiosity that we see when young children are interested and want to learn. And the irony being that by the time we've put people into our education system and spat them out, often they've lost that innate sense of curiosity, so focused on the end point. And yet this love of learning and curiosity, these are the things where really deep learning happens. So I was kind of convinced that an ARG had the potential to harness the love of learning and curiosity and bring them back into the classroom. Anyway, one day I met up with a friend of mine on the left there, a guy called Hugh Gary, and I was having basically a damn good moan about this. I can't remember what it was that had set me off. It might have been a conversation that day, but I was really bemoaning the mass HE system and the loss of the love of learning and no curiosity. It's all about assessment and money and blah, blah, blah. And then I was saying, I really want to try doing something like an ARG because I think that could be a great way to, engage students. So Hugh said, actually, I worked on a really big ARG for Radio 1. I was part of the team that worked on Perplexity. I'd be really into doing that with you. So I was like, oh, fantastic, because there's no way you want to do an ARG by yourself. They're way too complicated. So that was it. The PSVT AM ARG was born. Now, PSVT AM, this is a module, Advanced Multimedia, taken by students, final year students, on a degree in professional sound and video technology. So it's a real kind of mix between creative and technical. The module's been running since 2007, and the main focus of the module is for the learners to develop their online presence, a very deep understanding of digital identity, a living portfolio across multiple platforms when they leave uni. Alongside that, we do a lot of work looking at remix culture, copyright licensing, ethics, participatory media production. One of the big things that we do, and we've had quite a lot of recognition for, has been the production of mobile phone films. So that's something that we focus on quite strongly as a way to get the learners to have an appreciation for user-generated content, low production values, alongside high production values. The reason I mention that now is because that distinction between low and high and small and big media is actually a very important part of the game I'm going to tell you about. And we also look at transmedia storytelling, and then underpinning all this are critical media literacies. So this is the module. Didn't want to make any changes to the module, quite happy with the module, especially because it's not particularly planned anyway. We have a vague framework, and it's generally, there's a curriculum that emerges, hopefully, or, interesting things happen, and we can bring them back into the classroom as they happen. So it's a very living, breathing kind of module anyway. But that was our basic framework. So these are the kind of topics that we want to explore, but I wanted the learners to explore them in more depth than they ever have done before in the last sort of 5-6 years of doing the module. So, the plan, okay. What we thought was, we don't want this to feel like an educational ARG. We don't want them to think this is anything to do with education at all. We just want them to think it's a bit weird, and we want to make them confused and intrigued, and hopefully then they'll want to find out more. So we thought, well, you know, what can we do to give this real impact? And we wanted something that would be very like an event, something that would be real world. So we decided that it'd be great to get their mobile phone films shown on the huge BBC big screen in Exchange Square, also known as the Triangle, in the centre of Manchester. So we spent, I mean, we first started talking about this in February 2011. We spent months talking about, you know, narratives, storylines, how we could make this work. It was a really complicated thing to do, actually, to sort of, on one hand, make sure that you're ticking all the boxes in terms of your curriculum, and on the other hand, do something that's completely wild, wild west. Brilliant, so much fun. But our initial story did involve people in other countries and hacking into this big screen. It wouldn't be a real hack, it'd be a pretend hack. It was this fantastic story that we spent ages developing. Unfortunately, when we went to the BBC and explained what we wanted to do, they were just not having it at all. Their immediate reaction was, don't say hacking and the BBC big screen the same breath. Don't say it. No, 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 don't tell anyone. No, you can't do that, you can't do that. What if the Daily Mail find out? Oh my God, Daily Mail, Daily Mail. So, you know, you can imagine the conversation we had there. So it was kind of back to the drawing board. And we came up with something that was much less risky. And basically, it involved a mysterious stranger that would start communicating with the students. So the question now was, there we have a 12-week module. We've got a rough idea about what we're going to do, where and when. The question is, how do we get from digital identity, online presence in week 1 down to the reveal in week 11 without any of the students knowing what's going on and without anything going wrong? Quite terrifying, actually. Anyway, to get them into the game, our rabbit hole, which is kind of terminology from ARGs, was a series of numbers. Now, these numbers represented the date that we'd arranged the broadcast of their films on the big screen in the centre of Manchester, 9th of December 2011. So I had 30 students in the group. What I did was sent 10 of these letters to their home addresses. That was all that was on the bit of paper when they opened the letter. And it all went a bit crazy for a while, so I'm just going to show you a quick video now. It's about 3.5 minutes. I've tried to distill sort of 12 weeks of crazy gameplay into a very short video. So don't worry about following everything. You won't be able to follow everything. The idea is to give you kind of some sort of sense of the chaos and disorientation that the learners actually experienced.
Ladies and gentlemen, Meryl is performing at the
Truth be told, it's about connecting the dots. Figure it out. when they'll find out.
Your time is limited, so don't waste it by following your curiosity and intuition. It'll all work out okay. Learn how to do this. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. Got to find the answer, keep looking, and don't settle. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Stay hungry, stay foolish.
The worst thing about living a lie is just wondering when they'll find out.
Hi you lot, I am Charlie Leadbeater. I am not Ruthie Franzen, I promise you.
Okay. So I don't know if you caught any of that. It just struck me then that some of the type might be very hard to read at the back. But I'll explain a bit more about the actual gameplay and the narrative and the dynamics now. So basically, we had this maze set up for the students. I came up with the name Ruthie Franzen because we had to pick a name that wasn't on the internet, basically. So that was probably going back to June last year. And I just thought of this glass collector in a bar I used to go to. He was called Ruthie. I've never known anyone else called Ruthie. So I thought, okay, that's quite an unusual name. I was looking at my bookshelf, Jonathan Franzen. Okay, try that one. So Googled it, Ruthie Franzen. Brilliant, there isn't one. Okay, that's it. So Ruthie Franzen was born. So started setting up the accounts, the Twitter, the Google profile, YouTube, Flickr, Tumblr, and gradually over the summer started kind of coming up with the narrative for Ruthie, who Ruthie was, what Ruthie was going to do. And then when it got to about August, September, started populating these sites with content. Now, the Tumblr was the place where most of the learning material existed alongside codes. So the Tumblr was full of all these videos that we really wanted them to watch. Way too many videos. If I turned around to a class and said, I want you to go away and watch, 20, 30 videos that you're not being assessed on, they're not going to do it. But by putting the videos in a place that was surrounded by mystery and intrigue, in a way that really drove them to look for answers, they watched the videos. So it was quite a good tactic. Also the Tumblr, I'll give you the links for these. Hugh did some brilliant videos, like I put extracts of one of them there, then from Steve Jobs at his Harvard commencement address, with lots of subliminal messages in them, so tiny little flashes. And if you watch the video normal size in YouTube, you wouldn't see anything, but as soon as you full screened, you'd start seeing words and clues and codes. Videos, even the titles for the videos were in codes. The students thought, well, what's this series of numbers, and trying to crack the codes. And it was amazing seeing these behaviours kind of emerging within the group. Johnny became the code breaker. One of the students just obviously had this real natural aptitude for cracking codes. It was just brilliant. Other students brought their skills to the table. And, they started to build up some kind of picture of some weirdo that was trying to mess with their heads. That's about as far as it got at that stage. You'll have noticed, or hopefully you noticed at the start of the video, their initial reaction to the numbers was more paranoid than we had anticipated. got a bit scary. We had one student, the first thing he did was rang the Students' Union to complain about a breach of his personal data. Another student wanted to go to the police. Another student thought it was a death threat, and another student threatened violence on Twitter. So that wasn't really the plan. That was about 2 weeks into the game. And I'd only told one person that I was doing this because obviously I knew it was unethical. So you're not going to tell anyone, are you? So my colleague that did know what was going on, he actually got a bit worried at this point, and he said, look, this is getting quite serious now. You could get sacked. I thought, oh, shit. So that was quite a tense weekend, and he actually said to me and Hugh, he said, right, we've got to meet on Monday, we've got to sort this out. We can't, Helen's going to get sacked, we've got to stop this. I was like, oh God, oh God. And then it's weird how pig-headedness comes out of nowhere, isn't it? But I suppose the way I thought was, if you're going to get sacked for something, what a great thing to be sacked for a start. And secondly, I just thought, look, I'm doing this for the right reasons, and I know I'm doing it for the right reasons, and I can stand by that. So that took about 48 hours to come around to that way of thinking. So what I did do was sent this email out to them a couple of days later, completely abusing my position of trust here, but you know, some things you've got to do in the name of learning. I'm actually not only the tutor on this module for these students, but I'm also their program leader and personal tutor. So now we're getting into the really murky ethical areas. So it's a trust relationship, okay? But in a way, it worked out well because they were really freaked out by this letter and this roofie. But once I was able to kind of send them this email, luckily the trust relationship that we had enabled them to get into the game. And then something quite remarkable started happening. They changed from being angry and scared and paranoid to being quite excited. And literally overnight, something really remarkable happened. They completely started to drive the game. At this point, we were starting to almost lose control of the game in a sense. It was good. No one knew what was going on anymore. It felt like this is a real ARG. You know, this isn't just playing. This isn't a normal educational ARG. This is a bit mental. We could get into trouble. It was great. And so the students, all of a sudden, they want to make videos, and they want to make videos with codes in and put them online, and they want to try and do Roofy's head in, and you know, this real kind of turnaround. And students, they're going, okay, we'll do this and we'll do that, and I'll set up a Google Doc, and if you want to do this, and all of a sudden the learners are driving the whole thing and doing everything that we'd want them to do in the module, and then some, without realising they're doing it. It was just brilliant. It was magical, you know, to see those learning behaviours. And it got really interesting. I mean, I love this quote here from Sean Stewart from 42 Entertainment, who have worked on lots of ARGs, including I Love Bees. And this idea about the makers and, I'd say, players rather than consumers, but, you know, dancing around, and it's passionate with sinister overtones, and this idea of this unique dynamic. God, they couldn't be more, right. It was crazy. I mean, as the dynamics within the ARG changed, myself and you had moments where we slipped up or we got paranoid. I mean, Hugh's girlfriend is a stylist on The X Factor, and one of the students put this very short video up on YouTube, and it was just about 10 seconds, and all it was, him and his girlfriend watching The X Factor, and his girlfriend said, God, the stylists are really shit, aren't they? And that was the video. And Hugh saw this and he's thinking, hang on a minute, but my girlfriend's a stylist on it. So it was brilliant. So learning through paranoia, you can't beat it. We're all kind of completely paranoid by this point. Oh, God, it was fun. But yeah, we started to see these amazing behaviours. As I say, Hugh was absolutely brilliant, producing all these kind of short videos with subliminal messages in them. And they had to look really, really closely at these videos. Now, all it takes is for one learner to suss out that you need to look closely at the videos, and then the rest want to know, and they'll look closely as well. So I really sort of like that effect there. The pictures here, they've got this blue thing with water on and the sort of wheel over there. They're photos from things around the square where the videos were being shown. But I mean, these were going online 3 months before. So you can imagine how disorientating this was for the learners, but the sheer joy they started to get when they started to piece this stuff together and find answers. So I think one of the final clues was, you know, if this went up on the Tumblr, you have a number, you have a word, you have some videos, you don't need the answers, you just need to ask smart questions, crack the code. They kind of know what's going on, but they don't really know what's going on. They've got some answers, but they need to know more. By this point, they had worked out that they needed to be at the Triangle in Exchange Square, huge square, at 11 a.m. on the 9th of December, but they just didn't know why. Okay, that was the big thing, but why? And more importantly, who the hell is Ruthie Franzen? Who is this man that has been sending us cryptic messages for 3 months, completely wrecking with our heads? They really, really wanted to know who he was. This was really interesting because that was never part of the plan. Ruthie Franzen was a device for the story. The story became who is Ruthie Franzen. So that's the way an ARG works. You know, the players actually drive that narrative. And as puppet masters, you are never in full control. So that's why it's such an exhilarating thing to do. So they knew they had to be at the Triangle. They knew when. The night before the reveal, which was the 8th of December, Ruthie got in touch with the students to say that he'd give them an opportunity to ask him 5 yes-no questions. And he gave them a URL, and it led to a live Bambuza broadcast. But only one student was allowed to put the questions to him. The other students could ask questions, but they had to give them to Tay, either through Twitter or Bambuza, and she had to ask the questions. And I should just explain now that through this whole process, we're really monitoring these students. So I'm going, okay, that person hasn't engaged for a while. Let's bring them in that way. So there's all this play going on kind of behind the scenes. So anyway, this was completely surreal because the students all came online. It was really exciting. I'm there. Huey's at home, kind of doing the broadcast. I'm at home, still pretending I don't know what's going on, rallying the troops. I've got to say, actually, Mark, I don't know if you remember, but this night you started joining in the hashtag, just doing your usual thing, you know, heckling on Twitter. And I was there thinking, oh my God, he's going to guess it's an ARG, he's going to give the game away, don't do it, don't do it. But you didn't, so thank you. So we have this live Q&A. So they're all expecting to see Ruthie, very excited about it. They didn't see Ruthie. What they did get was 2 black glittery skulls and a white fluffy penguin. There was a yes skull and a no skull, and the penguin would just fly from skull to skull according to the answers. The students loved it. It completely blew their heads off. And they were like, it's the best TV I've seen in ages. You know, they absolutely loved that. But that wasn't the end of it. We had a couple more things for them. They still hadn't got the password. They didn't know what they needed the password for, but they just knew they needed a password. So there was another Steve Jobs video went up that night with the password, Pebbles and Boulders. Yes, and then the sort of final thing, just to completely mess with their heads. Towards the end of the game, they'd started to piece things together. Lots of them been going out and reading books that I'd referenced or we'd referenced in the class because they were wondering if they could find any clues anywhere. Now, Charles Ledbetter in We Think had written about I Love Bees, the ARG, and also he'd been mentioned quite a lot in the module, and we had a Charles Ledbetter video online, which had actually been online since October with the password in it, but nobody had kind of realised. But yeah, they did start to think, this is a bit weird, but it can't be Charles Ledbetter, can it? Is Ruthie Franzen Charles Ledbetter? So really, fortunately, it just turned out that Charles Ledbetter happened to be in Manchester that night on the Thursday. So Huey, total star, rushed down to the corner house in Manchester, nabbed Charles Ledbetter before his talk, explained what we were doing and said, can you just do us a quick video? And that's where the video from Charles Ledbetter came from. But you can imagine, this is like 11 p.m. at night before the reveal the next day. And Charles Ledbetter is talking to the students online to tell them that he's not Ruthie Franzen. I mean, at that time, oh God, honestly, I'm getting total chills thinking about this. It was just absolutely magical. So, on the day of the reveal, 9th of December 2011, the students had worked out that, you know, the night before, that this password was Pebbles and Boulders. They knew where they needed to be, they knew when. They'd gleaned other things from the clues. They knew there was something in relation to Foursquare. There was going to be a tip on Foursquare. So I'm still positioning myself as a player in the game alongside the students. At this point, probably only about half of us made it down there, and the rest had to follow down later because they were caught up in an assessment. So we make our way to the centre of town. That morning, myself and Hugh had met ridiculously early. I'd taken a load of QR codes, laminated with sellotape because it was a wet day, and sticking them around everywhere. And it was really frightening because there were so many things that could potentially go wrong. It's like, what if they didn't, do this or do that? Which was kind of, I had this very sort of dual role as a puppet master / player in the game, which was a bit weird actually, because obviously you're having to sit there and lie to all your students for 12 weeks. A bit stressful. But so we got down there on the day. The QR code there, they were instructed to go and find a QR code after checking into Foursquare and seeing a tip from Roofy. When they clicked on the QR code, it actually was the mobile phone number for a guy called Phil Chapman that controls the BBC big screen. And he was under strict instructions that if his phone rang between 11:15 and 12, because we didn't know how long things would take, not to say anything, just to answer it. All being well, the voice on the other end would say Pebbles and Boulders, at which point Phil had to press play for the big screen and text back to the number and say, turn around and look behind you. Okay, so, holy shit, sorry. As I say, there was so much stuff that could go wrong here, and I can't believe it didn't, and it was remarkable. So I've just put another extremely rough video together just to show you some of the reactions from the students kind of on the way down, the anticipation and the reaction to seeing their films on the screens. This is a film made by them, actually.
It's kind of very odd, but I don't know. It's just, it feels, I don't know. We're going to find out today, obviously, but it just feels
pass the time.
Yeah, it's distracted me from my assignments, which is really
No, I'm looking forward to finding out who he is. I want to see who he is and why he's chose us.
I didn't care at first, but then it got to me, so now I care. So
okay.
I need to finish this.
Lorenzo?
I just want to know who he is. I mean, who is Ricky Franson?
Right, got it.
I think when he said Pebbles and Boulders, all the Pebbles and Boulders are over there, aren't they?
Is it a QR code?
Pebbles and Boulders?
Oh my God!
Brilliant! So who is it then to have that kind of power to do that? This is my work. Who's responsible for this? Oh, this is so cool.
No way! God, I hope I don't.
So what do you think about the fact of your video being shown on a screen in the middle of Manchester?
It's mental, mate.
Are you into it?
Unbelievable, yeah. I'm very into it, yeah.
Are you having that large or what?
Oh, yeah. I didn't expect this to be what the result was, I have to say.
The question is where's Helen going? Let's just
that's what I just wondered.
pan the camera on where Helen's going.
What have you got?
brilliant. This is brilliant. I want to meet him. I want to meet Roofy.
Look at the big screen. Messed up. It's proper messed up.
It's a bit weird. But it's cool though.
It's fantastic, that is.
Joe?
Crazy.
I'm really loving this. I'm really enjoying it. I want to see my film up there. What do you think of this?
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's really good to have our stuff paid out to all these people.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Trying to get some footage of my video when it comes out. It's really
Excellent.
So, yeah, that was, we just had a small group at that time, and then other students kind of followed down. And once we kind of, got more students there and the films were showing, everyone was really buzzing about it. I was really pleased about that because I didn't know whether the big screen thing would be exciting for them, but it really was. They absolutely loved it. So then it was time for the reveal. So basically, Huey appeared, and we told them that their entire module had been an alternate reality game and Ruthie Franzen didn't exist. And I was really scared about that bit. But luckily, they took it very, very well. They were very stunned, actually. They were completely stunned. So I wasn't 100% sure at that time how they really felt. I could tell they kind of liked it. And then we've got Phil Chapman down there on the bottom right, kind of called him down from the big screen, and he came. And I think just to realise that they'd been part of this kind of lie for 12 months and that there were all these people involved, it was quite mind-blowing for them. But the reaction was just absolutely brilliant. And I think one of the really special things that happened that I've not experienced before, I don't know about anyone else here, was the fact that so many of them then went home and spent God knows how long going back over every single blog and video and clue and tweet to try and piece the whole thing together. I've never achieved that before. You know, to get your learners to finish the module, do all the assessment, and then go back and basically do it all again for fun. So brilliant. So yeah, very happy about that. I think all of us kind of became so emotionally engaged with this thing. You know, it was a real journey that we went through together. We still talk about it all the time now. We've got such a bond as a group. We still talk about Ruthie Franzen, you know, the Ruthie Franzen, whoever that may be. But no, it was fantastic. But as I say, it wasn't 100% successful because I think when I started doing this, really, the learners I was concerned about were those kind of, you know, the few in a group that never engaged. I wanted to engage those. And if I'm really honest with you, we still didn't engage those learners. This is a graphic, again, from 42 Entertainment, looking at levels of participation in ARGs, from, you know, the sort of casual to the enthusiasts, the active players, devotees, people have different terms for them. But our players definitely did split into these kind of categories. The enthusiastic participants, they're just amazing. I mean, they're kind of carrying on now. They want to carry on. You know, this group just did not want the module to end at all. I've got to say I didn't. And after Christmas, when we all got back, we were kind of talking on Twitter and face-to-face, and we all felt the same way. As much as they were saying, oh God, I'm dreading going back to normal modules now. It's going to seem really boring after that. I was thinking the same way about my modules as well. I was thinking, it's going to be really boring when it's not an ARG and it's just like a normal thing. But no, it's all good. I don't mean that. But yeah, so in terms of participation, we didn't succeed in terms of engaging every player. I'd say there were about 5 out of 30 that were just quite, you know, dismissive of the whole thing. And yeah, these were the students that are very conscious of fees and assessment and, you know, so not 100% successful. Obviously, big thing, ethical issues. Ethically, extremely dodgy, obviously, you know, because you're deceiving people, you're in a position of power. I mean, I always find ethics in education research quite an interesting area anyway, and unfortunately I think that our ethical approval boards, no matter how well-meaning they are, often stop us doing things that may allow us to innovate. So as unethical as this approach may be, my approach is very much a guerrilla approach where I kind of think, well, I'll do it, and then when it works, then I'll tell them about it and do it properly. So that's what went on here. But yeah, so, you know, the big question is, can we justify lying to our students? Can we justify making them feel uncomfortable in the name of education? Now, in this case, I think we can, because when I look at, you know, was it worth the risk, and looking at the comments from these students, you know, saying things like, I'm so pleased to have been involved in this, Ruthie will live forever, this is something I'll never forget, I want to do it again. And then I love this one, today I realised just how amazing the small things in life can be. Yes, it's a massive cliche, but it's true. And another student, it was incredible, we all watched in the rain as passers-by watched the work we had created broadcast on a huge screen in one of the most famous cities in the world. They absolutely loved it. It took them, I'd say, you know, 24, 48 hours to actually digest what had gone on. But it was incredibly transformative for them, and in the way, you know, that they thought, to the point of, you know, they started seeing, some of them started seeing patterns in things that weren't really there. So a couple of weeks later, I was doing a talk with Cisco in Greenwich, and we're looking over the O2 Arena, and I just happened to take a photo and I put it online. And one of the students went, "Whoa, I stayed there last year, whoa, spooky." It's just like, okay. So learning through paranoia, brilliant. But yeah, it really did encourage them to ask questions, open their minds, not just look at what's presented to you, look beyond what's presented to you. It was about opening their minds, heightening their awareness. And I think it really, really did do that. It really heightened their awareness of the world around them, not looking at the obvious, looking beyond the obvious, always questioning, always asking questions. And in that way, I think it was extremely successful. So thanks very much for listening. I've managed not to wet my pants with excitement because there are some bits that I get really excited about. So yeah, that was Ruthie Franzen. I'd just like to thank Hugh, the amazing students, Phil Chapman and the BBC. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Helen, for coming down and sharing that extraordinary story.